Hogwarts Legacy. The game some critics were too afraid to go anywhere near on the chance of being called a phobic of some kind. Or even if they did, their political beliefs got in the way of the review itself. As someone who simply does not give a flying fuck on a broomstick, I'll be sharing my thoughts on the game today. The story starts off with your created character receiving a letter notifying him or her that they were accepted into Hogwarts as a 5th year student. While being escorted to Hogwarts by your mentor, Professor Fig Newton, the carriage gets attacked by a dragon. Before being turned into a whiz kebab, your character and Fig teleport to Gringotts Bank via Portkey, where you are then forced to take the long alternate route. From there, the whole story revolves around attending Hogwarts while unraveling mysteries such as why was the carriage attacked by a dragon in the first place, why does your character have these incredible abilities that other wizards or witches do not, and why does the game's villain, Ranrock, hate all of wizard kind. I enjoyed the main story missions, but I feel like the game didn't have the level of urgency I was hoping for, much like the kind that was seen in the Harry Potter movies. Yes, I will be drawing those comparisons a lot, since they take place in the same universe. Unlike a vast majority of games that let you create your own character, your character in Hogwarts Legacy isn't someone who got their tongue cut out with a pair of garden shears. They actually speak. Not only that, but the voice actor or actress for your created character doesn't suck sweaty nipples.
Are you having butterbeer for breakfast?
Oh no. I've been perfecting a recipe I came up with over the summer. I'm almost there. Based on some reactions, it may need a bit more work.
As a matter of fact, the voice acting all around is really good, along with the writing itself. All of it captures the essence of the Harry Potter universe extremely well. The characters have so much life, personality, and charm coming straight out of their fucking asses. Whether it's the professors or students you befriend.
Welcome to Year 5 of Charms. Now, this will be a crucial year in your education on the art of charm work, but I am confident that we will take hold with the passion and rigor requisite of such a challenge.
Like Sebastian. Upon first meeting him, you'll probably think, this guy's a walking pile of dicks. Once you befriend him though, you realize there's a good reason why he behaves the way he does. As it turns out, Sebastian isn't as bad as one might initially think. Then you have Poppy, who is this very kind-hearted animal lover who wants to protect the beasties from being turned into towels poachers will use to butt floss with. And don't even get me started on Professor Gerlich. I think I speak for all them straight fellers when I say, she can tame my beast and ride it any time. The big bad of the game, and I use the term big bad ironically, a dwarf named Ranrock who wants to eradicate wizard kind, wasn't a memorable villain to be honest. He's not a bad villain by any means. I just wish they really delved deep into his backstory, kinda like the way they did with Voldemort in the Harry Potter movies. Like, his hatred for wizard kind stemmed from a personal experience, but it wasn't one that was so tragic it made me think, now I get why he hates wizards as a whole. Keep in mind, this is my opinion. If you feel differently, then that's okay. Before I discuss the mission design, I just want to praise the sheer amount of customization within this game. From choosing your character's appearance, the clothes they wear, what house they'll be a part of, and decorations you can fill the room of requirement with are just a few examples. I was worried the game would have time management. Thankfully, it doesn't. Even if it has a day and night cycle, you can still go to class whenever you want. Honestly, I wish school was actually like that. If it was, then I would have never gone. Attending class in Hogwarts Legacy is like actual school, except not shit, as you actually learn new things that benefit your life. One thing I always disliked about RPGs is there are also certain main quests you can't start until you reach a certain level or complete a certain task. Hogwarts Legacy is no different in this regard. These hurdles aren't anything too major though. Besides, Hogwarts Legacy more than makes up for those hurdles by gradually introducing new elements, preventing the game from feeling stale throughout its 25-hour playthrough in the process. These elements act as substantial rewards for the player. Case in point, you unlock the Room of Requirement. Eventually, you can rescue beasts and place them in giant vivariums within the Room of Requirement. These beasties can then be given names or food. Upon giving them food, they give you materials for crafting. You can create a breeding area for male and female so they can telepathically fuck each other's brains out and make cute little babies. Unlock a broomstick to fly on, which is cool and all, but it's not a hippogriff. Then you unlock the hippogriff, rendering your broom obsolete as it's stored in the closet where it will stay forever like the redundant piece of shit that it is. One thing I will say though is the flight controls are weird as fuck. In order to move your broom or mount up and down, you use the left joystick, whereas if you want to move left or right, you use the right joystick. You'd think the left joystick would handle all the movement, while the right joystick would be used exclusively for the camera. Aside from the odd flight controls, flying, especially on a hippogriff, is still a lot of fun. When you're not attending class, you're exploring dungeons in and outside of Hogwarts. This is where the whole mystery aspect of the story comes in. Dungeons include some well-designed puzzles. They felt fair yet not so difficult to the point where you have to look up the solution on the internet because in actuality, you're about as sharp as a spoon. One thing that was hyped up is the morality system. Sadly, choices don't have a massive impact on the story. What I mean is you can't exactly choose to be evil outright. You're kind of predestined to become a hero. Although you can still be a bit of a dickhead. Personally, this isn't an issue for me, seeing how I always end up being a goody two-shoes in games involving morality systems. Although I can see why it's an issue for those who feel differently than me. Some people out there are probably disappointed that there aren't romance options in this game. I personally could care less, since I have no desire to watch teenagers get all lovey-dovey with one another. Seeing how you play as a wizard or a witch, combat focuses more on attacking from a distance instead of closing in with a melee weapon and turning an enemy into sushi. Combat has a decent amount of strategy. Some attacks can be blocked while others can't, meaning you have to dodge them instead. Make no mistake, even if combat has a more distant approach, enemies can still close the distance between you and them very quickly. Certain enemy shields can only be broken using certain spells. For example, if their shield is purple like an Urple, you use spells with a purple box, aka 4 spells, to break the shield. You can lift enemies in the air like you just don't care and chain together combos, giving the combat a very satisfying rhythmic feel. Or, if combos don't tickle your pickle, you can chuck conveniently placed explosive barrels at enemies, causing massive damage. Upon filling up the ancient magic meter, you can pull off an ancient magic finisher on enemies. The finishers are fairly, yet wonderfully brutal. Certain stronger enemies cannot be killed with a single finisher. This is a good thing, as doing otherwise would devoid the game of any challenge. The combat never becomes stale, as you are constantly learning new spells, mixed with unlocking various upgrades from skill trees. There are also enhancements in the forms of new outfits, which heightens your defense and offense, or talismans you can attach to gear, kind of like the Nordic God of War games. Outside of your wand, you can use plants during combat, such as those fugly-ass mandrakes that make all nearby enemies' ears bleed.
Down easy!
Few complaints about the all-around awesome combat system, the first being stealth. It's okay at best. You sneak behind an enemy and then turn them into a statue. Secondly, the targeting system is shit. Thirdly, the camera can get you hurt or even downright killed during battles, although thankfully this isn't a recurring issue. As much as I like the enemy designs, this game relies way too much on reskins. Case in point, look at all the spider enemies in the bestiary. If you take away all the reskins, there's honestly not that many enemy types. I mean, there are so many creatures in the Harry Potter universe that would have been awesome to fight, like werewolves, dementors, dragons, and a basilisk, to name a few. Sadly, spiders are the thing you'll probably be fighting the most alongside goblins. The game does have a few bosses, though they aren't anything to write home about, with the exception of the final boss, which was fairly epic. Several dungeon bosses are reused, with the only difference between them being the exceeding ones have a couple new attacks and are slightly more difficult than the last. In a game that takes place in a universe like this, the developers had the perfect opportunity to make bosses these really epic one-on-one duels with wizards, witches, or even giant creatures. Look at the fight between Dumbledore and Voldemort in Order of the Phoenix, for example. Instead, with one boss, they rely on the good old minions trope. And the fact this boss needed a bunch of minions to fight a child is very telling of what kind of person they are. That, of course, being, they're a little bitch. In most cases, the frame rate stays at a consistent 60 FPS. I say most part because there are some noticeable frame drops here and there, but the frame drops aren't even remotely close to being Star Wars Jedi Survivor bad. The resolution in performance mode is supposedly 1440p. Even though in actuality it doesn't look over 1080p, and it appears slightly blurry as a result. In case any of you are wondering, yes, I turned off the motion blur. I always do. If I'm wrong about the resolution in performance mode, then feel free to correct my dumbass. Also, whenever you move your character or even the camera, you see this weird visual outline effect of your character, as if you just inhaled a bunch of hippie dust, while the resolution in performance mode slightly deducts from the visuals. That doesn't stop all the environments from standing out. The map is this very beautiful countryside that gives off a very cozy feeling. As you progress through the game, the seasons change, giving you a reason to gawk at the landscape in 4 different ways. I just wish you could switch between seasons after beating the game. The map is filled with plenty of iconic locations that are faithfully recreated from the Harry Potter movies. That's where the intricacy comes in. Hogsmeade is a bustling town with plenty of shops to enter, each of which is distinct yet equally as detailed. The Forbidden Forest, as its name suggests, is a really dark and foreboding place. Yet despite this, it still gives off an enchanted feel due to the fauna and glowing particle effects. Or those could just be fireflies. Either way, very stunning. Obviously, the best example by far is Hogwarts, as it's filled with animated paintings that give you the stank eye, or even this magical tapestry. Watching this is easily one of the most entertaining things in this game. By far the most impressive thing about Hogwarts is it actually feels like a place that's lived in, as it's populated with teachers, students, and even ghosts, many of whom are either talking to themselves like a proper lunatic, or are having full-on conversations with other people. It's a small thing, but I really appreciate that added detail in a game, as it makes it feel more realistic.
Certainly makes Rookie's job easy.
The world shares similarities with Days Gone, as it's large, but not to such an extent where it feels needlessly big. Most open world games, in my experience, take place in a giant city located in America. So it's a nice change of pace to explore a not overly crowded countryside located in the United Kingdom. That was a terrible accent. I'm hoping the sequel not only introduces more rideable mounts, but also aerial combat, along with the ability to take a big fat wet steaming hippo shit on people below. Because you can't do that in this game, Hogwarts Legacy gets a 0 out of 10. Terrible. Ruins the entire experience. There's such an abundance of different things you can do in Hogwarts Legacy, it's hard to not deviate away from the main story and just explore everything so you can see what the world has to offer. The world design does unfortunately suffer from the same problems other open world games do, though in my opinion to less of an extent, including an overabundance of collectibles, and let's not forget everyone's favorite, clearing out 50 million enemy camps. Another problem this game's open world suffers from, much like many others, are the side quests. Most of the side quests I played through were fetch quests. It's a shame because the lore within the Harry Potter universe is very rich. They could have drawn from the lore's rich nature to make really compelling side quests that are on par with The Witcher 3's side content. The game has something called relationship quests. These are tied down to the friendships you have with characters. And the quality of these pieces of side content is definitely a lot better than the traditional side quests. For instance, one relationship quest involves you and Poppy returning a dragon egg that was taken by poachers back to its mother, who is rightfully pissed off. The problem is, she takes her anger out on you. Because of course she does. All while you traverse through the ruins of a building and duck for cover every time Mama tries turning you into a charred turd. This chick has a really weird way of showing her gratitude. Another piece of side content I enjoyed are the combat arenas, as they put your combat abilities to the test. These arenas are filled with gauntlets of enemies. Each exceeding wave of enemies becomes progressively more difficult than the last. Upon completing them, you're rewarded with a ton of XP or new gear. The last thing I will discuss about Hogwarts Legacy is the music. When I said this game captures the essence of the Harry Potter universe really well, it extends to the soundtrack. Oh my god, it's so on point! Sure, the game has its issues, but seeing how it's the first in what I'm assuming is a new franchise, I think the developers did a damn good job. Here's hoping for some DLC that allows you to take your basilisk and slither in Gearlick's Chamber of Secrets.